He decided recently that it would be a lot safer for him, mobility-wise, to have a dog, a guide dog. And he got trained with the guide dog in January. It's made a tremendous difference. It's been a wonderful experience for the whole family. And now it's even better because we have a new family member. But Daddy can get around, he can come and go as he pleases, and his schedule at the office can be very flexible now because he can get home on his own.
Welcome everyone to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Kim Burke. Thanks for joining us today. 650 million people, roughly 10% of the world's population, live with a disability. As a group, they're actually the world's largest minority.
That's a true statistic that many people are just simply not aware of. And it's sad to say that unemployment among the disabled is as high as 80% in some countries. In contrast, other minority groups have experienced discrimination. Individuals with disabilities often have no legal recourse to redress unfair treatment. Fortunately, in the United States, the American Disabilities Act, the ADA, was enacted in 1990. The ADA is the Civil Rights Act for people with disabilities in this country.
That's great, too. I didn't realize it was enacted that late, too, 1990. Yes. That's amazing. And the Americans with Disabilities Act has made just a huge difference in the lives of people with disabilities, and our society is so much better for it. Now, later on, we're going to meet Michael Amoruso, who is an advocate for the ADA back in the late 1980s. Being disabled, he knows all about how people with special needs are treated.
Michael has Usher Syndrome Type 2. He is hearing impaired, and he has a degenerative vision impairment. He is legally blind, even though you would never know it.
No, you would
as
not.
we will see, but he will eventually lose all of his sight. However, the cards that have been given to Michael will not derail him.
No.
Choosing to view himself as differently abled as opposed to disabled, Michael has soared above the expectations and predictions of many doctors and teachers. Today he's a successful lawyer practicing elder law, special needs, and estate planning. And he has a beautiful family.
Yeah, you know, and it's amazing when you meet him. He's so incredibly positive. It's only positive energy, and he's an extraordinary individual. But before we sit down with Michael, first we're going to present a wonderful resource that does amazing work for the visually impaired. It's called the Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind. It's a privately funded, not-for-profit national entity headquartered right here in Smithtown on Long Island. Now, we're fortunate enough to have Wells Jones, the CEO of the Guide Dog Foundation, here with us today to talk about the great work that the foundation does. But before we talk to Wells, let's learn a little bit about the Guide Dog Foundation and the good work that they do.
This is Fran, and she is a yellow lab. She will be 4 years old in May. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, for many years, and Fran is my second guide dog, and Fran has given me a lot of independence. My training with Fran, it was 3.5 weeks long, and I did live here the whole time. We have our own bedroom, private bedroom and private bath when we stay here. Our dog is with us the whole time. They stay with us in our rooms. We try, and that's to help begin the bonding process and get as much experience while we're here with the instructors as possible.
As Director of Canine Care, the staff that I work with, we're responsible for providing the healthiest, most well-socialized puppy that we can. So from the time those pups are born until they're about 12 to 14 months of age, we take care of their health, we take care of their early training and their socialization, and then we hand them over to our training department for their final formal training. There are several breeds that make good guide dogs. The dogs that we use here at the foundation are primarily Labradors and Labrador Golden Retriever crosses. There are several factors that we look for in a really good guide dog. The first and most important is that they have to have the personality and the willingness to work that you see in guide dogs out on the street.
Primarily, I'm an instructor. I teach the blind people in the use of their dogs and also train the dogs and various other things along that line. A fully trained guide dog, by the time a blind person gets it, is pretty much, we will spend over $55,000 to get the dog to the person. And that includes a lot of things, from the veterinary care for the dogs when they're growing up, to the training, to getting people to and from the school, to get people in the field out to where they are to work with them in their home areas. There's so much involved with it. The people who get our guide dogs don't pay anything for the dogs or for the training, or for that matter, for their transportation back and forth from the foundation.
Right now, the dogs are having their free time. They've already gone out to train this morning, so it's very important that they get some just dog playing time. They work very hard, and they're in the kennels for X amount of hours a day. We have 220 kennel volunteers that come 7 days a week, up to 2.5 hours per day to get the dogs out, because total with 2 buildings, we're speaking about 130, 140 dogs to exercise.
Thank you so much, Wells Jones, for joining us today. As we just saw, the Guide Dog Foundation has been in existence since World War II. That's a long time. We all love dogs, man's best friend, but many of us do not realize that dogs literally open doors for those who are visually impaired. How does one go about getting a guide dog?
They would call our office, the Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind, 1-800-548-4337, and tell us they're interested in receiving a guide dog, and we'd work with them to complete the application process. We're looking to determine that they are in fact legally blind, that they have a beneficial use for the dog that can make a difference in their life, and we work through getting references and medical information so that we can provide the best service for them we possibly can.
Now, not everybody is sight impaired from being a child. A lot of people that you work with, as you said, legally blind, they become blind sometime during their life. So at what point should they start to contact you? When they start to go blind, when they're legally blind, when's the best time to contact you?
Question.
Well, when they feel they have the need. Somebody who's losing their sight has that time when they start to feel unsafe in getting around on their own, and that's when they should contact us to work with us. As you point out, fewer people are blind from birth these days. Far more are losing their sight later in life. In fact, over the next 20 years, the number of people who are blind or visually impaired is expected to double in this country, and that's largely due to age-related causes of blindness, people who are losing their vision later in life.
In the video, we learned that it can be expensive to train a guide dog. I heard the figure roughly $55,000, but I also heard there was no cost to the consumer receiving the dog. So how do you do that?
99% of our funds are from the general public, donors, in a variety of ways, from the $5 contribution to people who leave their estate to the Guide Dog Foundation.
Tell us what the dogs do. What do guide dogs do for the consumer?
Well, a guide dog, first and foremost, it's about safety and mobility, and so a guide dog is trained to work the straight line, to walk down a sidewalk, and to look for obstacles. If sometimes it'll see an obstacle and stop because it's trying to figure out its way around it. Imagine running into an obstacle on a crowded sidewalk or a hole that's in the sidewalk or something like that. A guide dog will help to find a seat on a train or a bus. It'll help to locate places where it's been before. It will look for height obstacles. So I think about a tall person like I am walking down the sidewalk and not wanting to hit my head on a limb. The dog will watch for those things and stop beforehand and give me an opportunity to reach out and confirm it's there.
Wow, I didn't even think of that up here as well as down here. You don't think about that.
Absolutely.
Tell us about your sister organization, America's Vet Dogs.
America's Vet Dogs is actually a continuation of an early mission from the Guide Dog Foundation. There was an earlier mention that we started in 1946, partially to serve blinded veterans from World War II. Well, with America's Vet Dogs, we're, in addition to guide dogs, providing service dogs to veterans of the current conflict. We've served about 80 veterans in the last couple of years related to America's Vet Dogs. We've also provided 2 dogs to the Army that are working with combat stress teams in Iraq, and we have 2 dogs that assist in physical therapy at Walter Reed Army Medical Center.
It's amazing how much of a difference that makes to someone who's recovering. Just
absolutely, it's huge. And these dogs provide balance to amputees. They just make a tremendous difference.
Unfortunately, a growing need.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Well, we are just thrilled that you had the time to join us today. Guide Dog Foundation, www.guidedog.org, and America's Vet Dogs, www.vetdogs.org. Thank you so much.
Vincent,
Wells
thank
Jones. When we come back, we will sit down with Michael Amoruso, his new best friend Warren, and Warren's trainer Sean Manahan of the Seeing Eye. Stay with us.
My first diagnosis with hearing impairment, that happened when I was 6 years old, pretty much in kindergarten. Prior to that, I heard 1/3 of the alphabet. That's all I heard. And so I had a teacher, his name was Mr. Bowles, and I thought his name was Middle. So I came home, I said to my mother, he said, "How was your day at school?" "Fine, Middle was okay." And they understood what I was saying. I found there was some way I can convey my thoughts to them without the language. Turns out, having heard 1/3 of the alphabet at that age, my vocabulary at age 13 was only that of a 6-year-old. We were diagnosed then with just a bilateral hearing loss. It's moderate to mild hearing loss. And there was a wonderful Catholic school called Iona Grammar School near Rochelle, run by the Irish Christian Brothers. And I went there. I felt an affinity for some reason, just being in that environment. And I asked my parents if I could go to school there. They found out that there was an entrance exam they were giving. And I went there that day for the entrance test. And there was 1 slot out of 70 open. They only had 1 space available. Lo and behold, my parents got a phone call the next day that I was in the school. We looked at the exam. The headmaster called me in because he was concerned. He never met me, but he's looking at the results of my exam. So here are the 7th grade students at this level of learning, and here's Michael, way down here. And they had to find a way to bridge that gap. And lo and behold, they did. Know what the secret was? Yeah, they gave me all the love in the world, but they also said, if you want to read better, we're going to make you read 2 books a week. If you want to spell better, you're going to do 50 spelling words a night. You want to learn more vocabulary, you're going to do 50 vocabulary words every night. And that's what it was. It was grueling work. But I only was able to get there because I had the family support behind me, your mother and father. And I'll tell you, later on as we discuss what happened here, how their influence and our family motto got me to think positively through those stages of my life. I've always been an athlete. Not only did I play golf, I played varsity baseball, basketball, soccer, had trophies in every sport. Competition and myself, I loved it. After playing high school golf, I went to Boston College and played varsity golf at Boston College. But when I wasn't playing golf, I would play with my roommates and friends, and we'd pick up basketball. Interestingly, pickup basketball is where I learned that something must be going on with my eyesight. I started getting hit in the face with the ball. Didn't see it coming from the side. And I called my father up and I said, I think something's going on here. That next morning, when we headed up to the specialist, he came into the room and he did a thorough examination on me. About an hour later, he comes back in. You have retinitis pigmentosa of the eyes, but it's also affiliated with your hearing. So you have something called Usher Syndrome, which is a combination of a bilateral hearing loss and retinitis pigmentosa of the eyes. So we got to the point where I graduated from law school and did very well. I was considered one of the better students at Boston College. And unfortunately, I had a trying experience with the interview process to find a job as an attorney. I felt I knew my diagnosis of my eyesight. I knew that I had to start using a blind man's cane because otherwise I'd walk into fire hydrants. So it's not something I felt comfortable hiding. But then I would get the questions, how can a blind person be a lawyer? And that actually stunned me to hear from an attorney, because the Americans with Disabilities Act was drafted by politicians and attorneys, and yet the attorneys were violating that and asking me simple job questions. And it started to cause me to question my career path for a moment. So I'd never get the second interview. So here I am, ready to graduate law school, having put myself through law school, so I've got a mountain of debt on my shoulders, just like many of the graduates do. The Lighthouse International in White Plains, who did mobility training for me, introduced me to a wonderful attorney here in Westchester. And that attorney took me under his wings, taught me everything I need to know initially about running a business of law practice. He introduced me to an area of law today called special needs planning. It was a wonderful introduction he gave me, and I owe him a lot for that.
We are now joined by my good friend Michael Amoruso and his new friend Warren, and Warren's trainer Sean Manahan of Seeing Eye, Morristown, New Jersey. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm just going to start right off. When did you decide you needed a Seeing Eye dog?
You know, it's interesting, Vincent. I've been using a blind man's cane for 16 years. And eventually it got to the point in time after I had my family that my eldest daughter, 7 years old, would guide me through the stores, guide me through the dark theaters. And I felt there was just a lot of pressure on her to guide her father around. It's also been very tough on my wife to get me around safely, and I need to relieve some of the stress off of her. So I made the decision. I approached her one day. I think it's time to get a guide dog. She was shocked, as any family member would be, but it's the right decision.
How has life changed for you and your family now that Warren is part of the family?
Got my independence back.
Wow.
I'm now traveling places that I haven't been able to go to on my own since college. And for me, personally, that's such a rewarding feeling. And that sense of independence, my dignity's back as an individual. For my family, my girls can be little girls now. They don't have to worry about daddy. My wife can be a wife. She doesn't have to worry about getting me to and from. She can have her life now, as well as our family life.
Did you realize you were missing all of that until you got Warren?
Absolutely. No question. You feel the stress in the family household. And it's always important to look out there for services that can help relieve some of the stress. That's why we have services like the Seeing Eye in other schools. It's very important as someone with special needs to take advantage of those sort of services.
And we were talking about the training. I know you had to be gone, Michael, for a month from your family. You mentioned that briefly earlier. That must have been difficult. You were away from your family, your law practice. What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got to the Seeing Eye, what touched my heart immediately was when I was saying goodbye to my kids. My oldest child, who was basically my guide dog before I got to Seeing Eye, understood what I was doing. Her sister, Liana, was more emotional. She didn't want to see Daddy leave for a month.
It's a long time for a child.
And that's when it hit me that I was leaving my family for a month. And it was an interesting experience, the Seeing Eye. Here I am. I'm a family person. You know, I don't go out with friends on Friday or Saturday evening. I spend it with my family.
That's not. You're
what
married.
I do. So that's what I enjoy doing. So to take me out of that environment was stressful for myself. Thanks to modern technology, every single day we use a program called Skype, so they got to see me on my computer.
Oh, that's nice.
And I got to see them as well.
Sean, talk to us about the training process.
Well, it's a 4-month schedule or rotation. Dogs are trained the basics in the beginning. We train on leash at first and introduce the harness a few days later. Basic training would the basics of it would be stopping for curbs, clearing people like Michael of obstacles that are in his way along the sidewalk, whether it's pedestrians or parking meters, garbage cans, all sorts of everyday things, and also keeping Michael safe as he crosses the streets.
What's the difference between a Seeing Eye dog and a guide dog?
That's a good
if
question.
If there is one.
Well, there is. The Seeing Eye is our registered trademark from the beginning, 1929. The generic term, guide dog, is what every other school will use generically. But they're called other names, and will use their names accordingly with their dogs. But guide dog is the generic or common term for all dogs.
Michael, let me ask you this. I mean, we both went to Boston College, and I know you were on your way to be hopefully a professional golfer.
That was the dream.
And you've played in my Swinging for Teresa golf outing.
Which is a lot of fun.
And usually wins. How do you do that? You're sight impaired.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful golfer. You love sports. Just talk a little about, how you do it.
I played so much golf passionately in my life and competitively that I could do it with my eyes closed, because you start to sense other things in the environment. Golf is all about slopes and terrains and rhythm. My feet feel the ground.
Wow.
And of course, Warren will be a part of your golf game soon.
He's already been trained. He's with me on the driving range now. He doesn't budge.
Really?
He's fantastic.
Isn't
So we're going to hit our
fabulous?
first course next week, buddy.
Oh, I bet he's looking forward to it.
I've got to get ready for your tournament next month.
What about the family? I know you have daughters, Leanna and Malika. Yeah. How have they reacted to your disabilities? We'll call them that because they're kids, and and then how have they reacted to their dad with his new companion?
Well, I'll take the first question first. How have they reacted to my disabilities, if you will? These kids are well beyond their years. They look at their dad as somebody special. Special because there's no one else in their class that is blind. There's no one else in their class that has a seeing eye dog. And I was raised to look at the glass half full. And I was trying to pass that on to my kids, but they have it instinctively. They're thrilled that their dad is not like everyone else. And that makes me proud to see. Our family motto, Avanti sempre avanti. Vincent, you probably know what that means from Italian. Forward. Always move forward. That is a critical component of how I've raised my daughters, how my parents have raised me. How has their life changed with Warren now in the picture? They have a pet. The stress of my daughter having to guide me through a store is now gone. But when they get home from school, they can go run in the backyard with him. Tire him out, and they love that.
So he's not just working all of the time. He gets to be a dog, too.
We take this harness off, he's just like every dog that you see in a household.
And that's the difference, is that, John, it's when the harness is off, he's no longer a working dog. That's how he knows that it's time to just be dog.
Right, correct. And it's so important that they have that time that Michael gives to him every day. That's crucial to the working phase of it, too.
You have tremendous spirituality in your life, your faith. Share with us how that has helped you.
My best friend, other than my wife now, has always been Jesus. There's no question about it. I learned at private school when I was younger that prayer does not necessarily mean you have to only recite every single prayer that you learn in CCD class. Prayer is personal. It's a personal friendship conversation between you and God. Sure. And that has gotten me through such pain and challenges in my life. The day I found out I was going to go blind, for example, I was on a putting green. To me, that was a chapel. I went to a putting green just to putt, and I was talking to God. And you know something? When I left that putting green, after the sun went down, I saw how beautiful it was. And I said, that's a sunset I'm never, ever going to forget. And I walked back to my home. My parents were still very sad, but I walked in with a smile on my face.
Very positive.
Because of the conversation that I had.
Such strength. Wow. Just incredible. Well, it's been so helpful for you to share your story, because there are so many people with disabilities who feel alone, feel like they don't have a chance to live their dreams, and you're living your dream. And Sean, look at the life, the hope that you've given Michael and your organization, Seeing Eye. So we really appreciate all the good work that you're doing. And for more information on your organization, www.seeingeye.org. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in the family room.
Thank you, gentlemen,
Thank
for
you.
inspiring both of us. And now let's check in with Monsignor McNamara for a spiritual reflection.
In the parable of the talents, Jesus commends the two persons who use their talents and reprimands the one who buried the treasure of talent out of fear. In the story we are hearing on Family Comes First, Michael is a very good example of a man who used his talents even though he had some big obstacles to overcome. His difficulties with hearing loss in his early years could easily have led him to settle for less in life. Instead, he spoke to his parents about how he wasn't being challenged in school, and he used his potential to the full. That's the first lesson that Michael has to teach us. The second lesson is that he wanted to become a pro golfer and then a lawyer. When problems with his eyesight prevented him from fulfilling his first dream, he simply moved on to his second dream. How realistic and courageous. The third lesson really comes from the circumstances he faced in getting a job. Imagine someone telling him that a blind man couldn't become a lawyer. Do you limit people by their disabilities, or do you help people to reach their dreams? The first stance is negative and has no place in the Christian life. The second stance is positive and is what Christian living is all about. The choice is yours, so choose life. We all have a lot to learn from Michael.
Isn't Michael amazing?
He truly is very inspirational.
Just incredible.
Yep. Living with a disability is a challenge that millions of people worldwide deal with every day. Although it sometimes may seem daunting, with the love and support of family, the determination to make the most of life, and the aid of useful resources, individuals with different abilities are able to thrive.
Both the Guide Dog Foundation and the Seeing Eye provide canine companions for the visually impaired and brave veterans of war, giving them a better chance of living life to the fullest.
I was hoping they were going to make you do that motto in Italian myself. But for more information on resources for special needs, please visit www.vjrussolaw.com. Today has certainly been an educational and really a very touching day, so have a fantastic day, Vincent.
Have a great day, Kim. Thanks to all our viewers for joining us today, and remember, family truly does come first.